Asking for directions in English is the easy part. However, quite a lot of people struggle with giving and understanding directions. This is really important if you work in the tourism industry because you will need to guide people around and also understand directions yourself. If this sounds like something you struggle with, keep on watching. We'll talk about it. In today's video, I'm going to give you some really useful expressions and vocabulary that you can use to give directions and also some things that you might hear. This will be a bit more advanced beyond the basic go straight, go left, go right, go back directions. When you want to give directions, it's quite useful to start with a set phrase or expression. Something like this. The quickest or the easiest or the best way to get there is to, and then you can add your direction or your instructions. As mentioned previously, the most basic way to do this is to use the verb go and then the direction. However, for the directions left and right, you can also use the verbs make and turn. For example, make a left, turn right. If somebody is in a vehicle and depending where in the world you are, you might hear some other verbs such as chuck, throw, or hang. These are all verbs that you might hear in different countries and different regions that people use to give directions. We like to keep English interesting for you. For example, somebody might say hang a right, which basically means to turn right. Or they might say throw a left, means to turn left or go left. And my personal favourite, someone might tell you to chuck a Yui, which means to make a U-turn. This means to turn around and to go back the way you just came from. With some big roads such as highways or freeways, and also some smaller roads that have one direction for the traffic flow, they might have a fork in the road. This basically means that the road splits into two. This can be quite confusing if somebody has told you to go straight, because you will then have two options which are both technically straight. In this case, a word that you can use to give directions or something you might hear is veer or bear. For example, at the fork, veer to the left. This means to take the section off the road that is more to the left. Or you could say, when you get to the fork, bear right. So that's the opposite. It means to take the section off the road that is to the right. If somebody is really familiar with the local area, it's quite good to use road names. However, most people asking for directions are probably tourists, so there's no use telling them the name of roads. In this case, it's good to use landmarks or geographical objects. For example, you could tell somebody to drive along the river or drive along the railway track. This doesn't mean that they will actually drive their car on the river or on the railway track. That's something you definitely shouldn't do. But it means that there might be a road next to the river that the person can drive along and follow the river until the next turning point. That's all for today's video. I hope these expressions were useful for you because these are things that you can use and things that you will hear all around the world. Of course, there will be some regional variants, but hopefully now you can understand when people give you quite unusual directions. If you haven't already subscribed, don't forget to do that now so that you can continue to advance in English. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time. Bye for now.